Right. Hello, my name is Rose Sink, and I am representing Dr. Chess's Lang 120 class. And I would just like to thank Dr. Chess and Leslie Johnson and every single one of you for the opportunity to turn what was a research paper into something a little bit more than that. I'll be talking about summer camps and group dynamics and the role that isolation plays in both of those. And I was inspired to do this topic because from one line of Judith Shulowitz's The Sabbath World, and that is the book that we read as a class. And in this book, Shulowitz discusses the capital S religious observance kind of Sabbath, and the lowercase s, maybe just not checking your email for a whole weekend kind of Sabbath. Essentially, both just require devoting an amount of time towards something that you might not usually do. In turn, there's greater time for self-reflection and just growing your community. So the actual line that inspired me, I'll read in full. The value of camps for indoctrination lay in their isolation, and their being cultural islands, which allowed them to create alternate societies without interference from the dominant society. And when I first read this, I just had to stop because she so beautifully puts into words something that I have been trying to define for most of my life. You see, when she says camps, she is referencing summer camps. And this top image, I'm the one in the middle standing up, and I'm 6 years old. It's my first summer at a summer camp, had the straight across bangs. And then from 6 to 14, I grew up at that camp. The bangs went away, thank goodness. And then the past 3 summers, I have worked there as a canoe instructor. And what she puts into words is what my coworkers and I call the real world. Because working at a summer camp, you really do feel like you're in an entirely different world. And I'll try to summarize that. It would take a million pictures to show you what camp life is actually like, but I'll try with these 4. The image in the upper left-hand corner is of our executive director, and he spends the most time with the outside world, but he also spends a lot of time on the tire swing. He leads climbing trips and paddling trips. You start to know what day of the week it is by if you're going to the pool or the lake, or if you're going hiking. You are constantly surrounded by nature. You probably smell like campfires and sweat. And it's really difficult to fit into the really demanding dress code of camp life. It's either athletic or like tacky, but then tackier than that. And when this is all you know, you feel so isolated from what's outside that. And this becomes blatantly obvious on Fridays, which is when our campers go home, and as a staff, we go out to eat. I'm sure we turn a few heads. We probably still look a little bit tacky, probably smell bad. But essentially, when you go out into the real world and you've been isolated from it, you're just like a sponge trying to absorb all of this information. Like what movies have come out. I can't name a single movie that came out this summer. I just have no concept of that. So that led me to the larger idea that maybe if I'm spending all of my days on the river instructing mostly good campers down some pretty nice whitewater and hauling their butts out of the whitewater, which that's at least the second most important thing that I do and the second most frequent thing that I do. Maybe my summer camp experience could also be a Sabbath experience, because I'm obviously building a community and I do have that time for self-reflection. So I just wanted to look into that in my research paper. However, there's obviously no research that says summer camp equals Sabbath. So I did what Shulowitz often does, and I just looked into the history of summer camps and the observable effects that they have on people who experience them. So I started with the origin of studies on group dynamics, And this arose with social group work in the 50s and 60s, which essentially says that different styles of leadership make different group dynamics. So if I was yelling at all of you, you'd probably be pretty jumpy, right? And I looked at 2 social psychologists, Muzafer Sherif and Kurt Lewin, and they did cool studies, but what really matters is that they were able to do those studies by using summer camps. They were 2 of the first people to study group dynamics because it's so hard to subject a group to the experimental process. So they were able to do this because summer camps can be so easily manipulated to produce desired outcomes. So thinking about that, that's pretty cool if you're a social psychologist, but that's also really cool if you're a summer camp. Or the American Camp Association, which accredits hundreds of summer camps across the country. And essentially, they have a mission to foster campers' growth and development. And they did the study between 2001 and 2004 titled Youth Development Outcomes of the Camp Experience. And they did this to see, what actually are the effects of summer camps on kids? And how can summer camps as a whole better reach the kids that they are trying to help grow? So they looked at 4 large developmental categories, which are highlighted in yellow, and all of these saw large improvement, and that improvement was sustained 6 months after the camp experience. And then they also looked at 10 subcategories, and I believe 9 of those also saw that same sustained growth. However, it was really interesting because stuff like the experience of the directing staff or the experience of the counselor didn't really matter with the growth of the child. So what did matter was specific programming that directly targets some of these topics. So my camp is religiously affiliated and therefore would see a higher growth in spirituality. My camp is also an overnight camp, and in general, those had better scores with physical and thinking skills. So this is great for camps because they're able to see, okay, we want to make kids better leaders. We should have some sort of program that directly addresses that. But it's also great for parents because if you specifically want your child to grow in a certain way, you can check with different summer camps and see if they have a program to do that. Lastly, as a country, we send millions of kids to summer camps each summer. However, a lot of them are not financially accessible. So if so many kids are going to summer camp and those kids are being positively impacted by it, if we start seeing camps as something essential for the development of a child, maybe as a society we can level the playing field and try to get everyone to have that same positive impact. And I also just want to ask all of you to look at your own life and think about something that you might do that could also be considered a Sabbath experience, and try to give that the attention that it deserves. Thank you.
You talked about a lot of the studies and stuff that were done. Were there any direct results that you found? Like, say a kid went for leadership skills, or they were a little bit too shy and were trying to develop their social skills. In your findings, did you have any direct results that came out of that? Like a child that was observed in one of these studies, like what was the result like when they went back to school or when they went back to their family?
Well, this study, it used camper surveys, but it also used parent surveys. So the parents were sent a separate survey 6 months after the camp experience where they would, fill out on a chart how they think their child is doing. I'm sure that there are studies like that, but the one I looked at was very general. Does that answer your question?
Not entirely, but I understand why.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Any more? Okay. Thank you.